Abaguglio?
Yes, it was.
Sally Bugs?
Yes, sir.
Where is Jimmy Hoffa buried?
I'm going to tell you where Jimmy Hoffa is buried. And he told me. I am the only person that knows the location of his final resting place.
Well, his account that Hoffa's body was transported from Detroit after he was shot there is now corroborated by another person, Frank Coppola, who told us it was his father who buried Hoffa.
Your father said Hoffa couldn't fit in the drum?
Couldn't fit in the drum feet first. He couldn't get the legs to bend right. So he had to take him out and put him in head first. Yeah, don't take this the wrong way, because I have a lot of respect for him.
Yes.
But what he said was they couldn't fit the fat little man in feet first.
So with that information that we've revealed, what should authorities do next? Joining us is Alex Little, former federal prosecutor and partner at Burr and Foreman. He's in Nashville. And Bob Bianchi, former Morris County prosecutor, also a prosecutor in Hudson County, New Jersey, and criminal defense attorney. Bob, let me start with you because you're the New Jersey guy. Are these accounts from both Phil and Frank, is that enough for law enforcement and prosecutors to start an investigation?
Eric, I've been working with you a little bit on this case, and I've reviewed the materials you sent. And let me just put it this way. If you had come to my agency when I was the head county prosecutor, I would have hired you in a flash minute to be a detective, because the information that you have unearthed, and Dan as well, has led to two sons of these figures that are basically saying the same thing with regard to where the body was dumped, which also corroborates information that the FBI had at the time. And I'll make my biggest note on this is how it would affect me as the lead prosecutor in my county if the information came to me, was that these fathers did this both, if you will, with deathbed confessions, if you will. They would not put their sons in harm's way, and both of them wanted to ensure that the remains of Mr. Hoffa were sent back to the family. As a prosecutor, that would be very compelling information to me, and I would want to be sitting down with these folks because it is too important to American history, to the Teamsters, and more importantly, the Hoffa family, that we get resolution of this case. And these are tremendous leads. Great job, Eric Shawn.
Well, thank you for that. Also for Dan Modea, top Hoffa expert in the country. And Alex, we're talking about Barbara Crancer. She is Jimmy Hoffa's daughter. She's 81 years old, a retired judge. She's got all these files in her basement out in St. Louis. And James P. Hoffa, the president of the Teamsters. And for the nation and for all the Teamsters members, as a former federal prosecutor, we're told the FBI is in touch with the Newark FBI office. What does it take the feds in order to try and come in and have this type of investigation? What should they do?
Well, I mean, it's not really coming in. They've had this investigation open for almost 40 years, and so they're going to continue that process. The amount of documentary evidence on the FBI side is going to be massive, and the question is, what do they have that we don't know that's going to corroborate the information that you've brought to light? So I suspect using this information that you've developed is really going to help fill in some of those holes and help them do the next step, which obviously would be hopefully finding the body and then going from there. But then, Alex, I mean, is this hearsay? If someone says something and,
Sure.
you know, tell me about the evidentiary rules about... Yeah, so at this stage, everything you're doing, you don't need to worry so much about what it's going to look like in court. You want to know the answer. You know, investigations have two stages. One is, what's the answer? Let's find it. And then two is, okay, now that we know the answer, how can we prove it? And it's really difficult to think about what the courtroom evidence is going to be until you know the actual answer. So as investigators, they're going to use all leads, all hearsay, any sort of speculation they can to get the answer. And then they'll start to build the case as to how they'd present it to a jury. Well, that's a great point, Bob. The DOJ materials say that Sally Bugs Bergoglio is the one who shot Jimmy Hoffa, and he's dead. He was shot to death on Mulberry Street 3 years after Hoffa disappeared. So does that mean that the evidentiary rules, like hearsay, this sort of thing, are different? Because what you're trying to do is find the remains. And there's Sally Bugs on your screen right now. You're trying to find the remains, not get a conviction.
Yeah, I agree with you, Eric. The rules of evidence are not going to apply at this stage, at least because it's an investigation. And hearsay, by the way, in investigations is routinely used in grand jury proceedings and search warrants, which may become relevant here. Their main thing, I agree with Alex, is to get to the body, be able to recover those remains for the family so that they can properly bury those remains. And should there be a prosecutable case, which may be very unlikely because the shooter, which seems to be lots of points coming to the same person, Sally Buggs is no longer here to prosecute. But I don't think investigators are going to be looking that far down the road right now. They want to get the body first, and then they'll make the decision as to whether there's any prosecutable cases.
Yeah, both Phil and Frank told us that that is a goal of is to get the remains back to the Hoffa family, to finally get this done and finished. I mean, Alex, there are two suspects who are still alive, Chucky O'Brien and Thomas Andretta. Mr. O'Brien wants the files out. His family has told me that. Mr. Andretta will not comment. I've tried repeatedly about him. Let's say Thomas Andretta knows more about this than anybody. What's stopping the prosecutors from saying, with the Hoffa family's agreement, maybe giving him immunity? What if he comes forward and says, well, I was told this? Is that one way to potentially get the truth out if he knows?
It definitely would. I think it goes back to, if you find the body, it corroborates these statements. And that's what you want to do. You want to build this sort of piece by piece. So you find the body, it corroborates those two deathbed confessions. Then you have to make a choice. Is it more important for sort of the whole structure of this case and the way that this fits into American history to get an answer than it is to prosecute potential, accessories to the crime? And I suspect the FBI would at least consider giving immunity to get that answer.
Bob, your view?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Getting the body and the remains is a very, very important thing to the family here. If they had to give somebody immunity in order to be able to get them to testify before a grand jury and or to be able to include information in a search warrant to do a dig at the location where it is believed that the body is, then that's great. But let's not forget here, Eric, the breakthrough that you made in this is that these two very important witnesses, the sons of two fathers that are dying, basically give them corroborating information at the murder happened in Detroit, and the body was brought back here in New Jersey because Tony Pro, the noted mob figure, wanted to have his Jersey trophy. And even the FBI was making a dig at the Moscato dump site in Jersey City, where I used to be a former assistant prosecutor. So to me, when I became the head prosecutor, if this case came across my desk, I would immediately be contacting my law enforcement partners, in this particular case, the FBI, saying this information is too valuable to not go forward with it, not to mention they're willing to cooperate, and one is at least, maybe two, I believe one, is willing to even take a polygraph. That would be extremely persuasive to me.
And they're both willing, and one has a sworn affidavit willing to go to authorities. They want to solve this case. They want to finally end it for the nation and for the Hoffa family. We can only hope that law enforcement can work and figure out some way to finally end this horrendous situation for Barbara Crancer and James P. Hoffa after all these years. I thank you both. And also, by the way, these are the files. See all these black marks? These are redactions that the government has 30 years ago. We've been calling for the files to be released because a lot of the answers are in here. Bob and Alex, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Of course. And you can watch, there's a movie about all this, or you can see the real thing right here. The people in places who say they know what happened to Jimmy Hoffa. It's our exclusive special tonight here in the Fox News Channel. The real search for James R. Hoffa, 10 p.m. Eastern, only here later on tonight.
I have it recorded. You have done excellent work on this, my friend. Congratulations.